In the enigmatic realm where the veil between myth and reality thinly separates, Moonlit Redemption, the Chronicles of Aiden Grey, unravels a captivating tale of transformation, love, and the pursuit of absolution. Our protagonist, Aiden Grey, a cursed long-run torn between the dual existence of humanity and lupine ferocity, navigates the treacherous path of self-discovery under the moon's silvery glow. Sophia, a woman of mundane origins yet extraordinary fate, unknowingly holds the key to unlocking the shackles of Aiden's lycanthropic prison. Drawn together by an inexplicable bond thicker than fate, their encounter sparks an odyssey that transcends the mundane, weaving through the tapestry of ancient prophecies and modern intrigue. Mirela, a descendant of the very gypsy lineage responsible for Aiden's curse, emerges as an unlikely ally, wielding forgotten knowledge capable of unraveling the threads of destiny. Together, they embark on a journey to gather relics steeped in mysticism, from the lair of the first family Messiah to the cryptic wisdom of Sterling, each holding the key to breaking the chains binding Aiden's primal form. Amidst the hunt for a cure, a sinister force threatens to disrupt the balance, revealing that the true antagonist lies not in Aiden's curse, but in the darkness lurking within society's fear and prejudice. Moonlit Redemption explores the dichotomy of identity, painting a poignant narrative where acceptance and love, in its purest form, hold the power to transcend curses and rewrite destinies. Aiden Grey, the cursed hero of our tale, embodies the struggle for identity and the quest for absolution, reminding us that in the heart of every beast lies a human longing to be seen and loved. Moonlit Redemption, the Chronicles of Aiden Grey, promises a journey through the labyrinth of love, redemption, and the timeless question of what it means to be human in a world divided. Chapter 1. I was minding my own business, doing what I do. I was farming wheat and raising pigs, just trying to feed myself and stay alive when the hostile mobs attacked. It was difficult but enjoyable work. It was, however, lonely work. I needed a companion, and so I decided to set out to find an ocelot or a wolf to tame for a pet. In retrospect, I wish I could simply have endured the loneliness. At least I had my basic needs taken care of. At least I had a home to protect me from the nighttime monsters. At least I could control myself during. Anyhow, early one morning I woke up and stuffed a bunch of fish and bones into my inventory and set out to find a new pet. I had been mining only for a few days, so the only armor I had was made of leather. But I had managed to forge an iron sword, so I felt somewhat safe. Figured an iron sword would be enough to protect me during the day, and if I were attacked I could probably run back to my house and hide if necessary. I walked through the nearby forest, hoping to find a companion sooner rather than later. As I was walking by some bushes, I heard a meowing sound. An ocelot. I pulled some fish out of my bag and said, "Here kitty kitty, here kitty, kitty." Slowly, the cautious ocelot crept from underneath the bush. Although he was wild, he could not resist the smell of the fish. I tossed one to him and he ate it quickly. I tossed another and he gobbled it down. I tossed a third, and he pounced on it, devouring it with amazing speed. I thought he might be tame enough for me to grab, and so I lunged at him to pick him up. But I had miscalculated and he scratched my leg. It was a deep cut and bled a lot. "Ouch! You stupid ocelot," I said. "I just want to be your friend." The ocelot looked at me and hissed before running away into the mountains. "Lame," I said aloud as I put a bandage on the scratch to stop it from bleeding. After patching myself up, I checked my inventory. Only 2 fish left. There was no way I could tame an ocelot with only 2 raw fish. "I guess I'll have to find a wolf to tame," I said, looking at the pile of bones in my inventory. Having a dog is probably better than having a cat anyway, I thought. Dogs will help you fight. Cats just run and hide. And so, I began looking for a wolf to tame. The problem with taming a wolf is that they can be much more vicious than an ocelot. A bite from a wolf would make the scratch from the ocelot look like a paper cut. I needed to be. Chapter 2. I continued to walk through the forest looking for a wolf. There were no signs of wolves, not even any piles of wolf droppings. I had no clues. As I walked, I kept my sword at the ready for any hostile mobs who might attack. I was still learning how to be a good warrior, so I was not as confident as the more experienced players I had met while trading in the local village. I had just turned around the bend in the path when I noticed something odd. A tree with no leaves on it. I had never seen anything like it. As the wind moved through the barren branches of the tree swayed back and forth silently like a hanging skeleton. Even though it gave me the creeps, I moved closer to the tree. How did it have No leaves. It did not appear to be dead. I walked up to the tree and slashed it with my sword. But instead of wood chips, it began to ooze a red fluid that looked suspiciously like blood. What? Before I could recover from the shock of a bleeding tree, I felt the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Someone or something was watching me. I slowly turned around. I scanned the forest and the dark crevices in the nearby hill. I saw no movement. It was eerily silent. And then I saw it for the briefest of instants. I thought I saw two glowing white dots, maybe eyes, peeking out at me from a black crack in the hill. Who's there? I shouted. No response. I could no longer see the white dots, so I cautiously approached the black crack where they had been. As I got closer, the light from the sun was just strong enough to see all the way to the back of the crack. Nothing. What or who had I seen? I did not have much time to ponder this thought because when I turned around, I was faced with a huge snarling wolf. He stared at me with evil yellow eyes, and he was already starting to drool, anticipating his next meal. Me. Chapter 3. I knew there was no way that I could defeat this huge wolf with my leather armor and iron sword. He would tear me to shreds before I'd inflicted any type of meaningful damage. I was preparing to die, hoping to respawn in a better place when I suddenly got an idea. I reached into my inventory and threw the 6 bones that I had at the wolf. The wolf took his eyes off me and started chewing on the bones. While the wolf was distracted, I ran as fast as I could back toward my house. I knew that if I could get inside the house and lock the door, I would be safe from the wolf. I turned and ran. When I had gone about 100 feet, I looked back. The wolf was still chomping at the pile of bones. Incredibly, he did not seem to be paying attention to me. Maybe he would forget about me? Not exactly. The wolf was chewing on 2 bones at once when he suddenly looked up. He stared right at me with his evil yellow eyes, and then he let out a murderous howl and started running after me. I turned and ran. As I ran, I dropped everything I had except my sword in the hope that I could outrun him if I were lighter. I looked over my shoulder. He was gaining on me. I looked ahead and saw my house come into view. It was going to be close. As I ran for my life, the air going into my lungs felt like a hot knife. My heart was beating so fast it felt like it would explode. I hopped a fence with a single bound like a giant scared rabbit. I was inside the boundary of my farm. My door was getting closer. Just a few more steps. I chanced to glance behind me and saw the wolf clear the fence with ease. He was right behind me. I wasn't sure I was going to make it. I got to the door and shoved it open. I turned around and started pushing it shut, but before I could close it all the way, the wolf slammed his massive body into my door. The force of the wolf slamming into the door popped my right shoulder. It felt like it was on fire, but I could not let go of the door. If I let the pain stop me, I would become a meal for the wolf. I took a deep breath and grunted as I pushed the door as hard as I could. Was almost there. Just a tiny bit more, and it was then that the wolf stood on its hind legs and sunk its sharp teeth into my left arm. I screamed. The pain was intense. The worst I had ever felt. I reached over with my wounded hand and managed to grab a lit torch off the wall. I shoved the fire into the wolf's stomach, and he backed away just enough for me to close and lock the door. After I locked the door, I sank to the floor. I could hear the wolf howling and hurtling its body against the door, trying to get in to devour me. But it was to no avail. I don't know how long he kept at it though, because I soon passed out from the Chapter 4. I have no idea how long I was unconscious. Seemed like a few hours at least. When I came to, I heard banging on my door. First I thought it was the wolf. I tried to stand up to look, but the pain in my arm made me stop. I looked down at the bite and it was swollen and filled with pus. Oh, gross. Through the haze of the pain I thought I heard a voice. Steve, it seemed to say. Steve, are you in there? Who is that? I croaked, my mouth as dry as sandpaper. Steve. Oh my goodness, you are alive, the voice said. It's Ranger. Ranger was one of the farmers in the nearby village. He was one of the few villagers I'd met who was a fair trader. When I first started my farm, he even helped me plant my crops. Ranger, I said, struggling to get to my feet. Hold on and I'll open the door. I unlocked the door and let him in. You look terrible, he said. What happened? A giant wolf attacked me. Here, he said, digging into a pocket in his brown robe and pulling out a bottle. Drink this healing potion. I tried to refuse. Oh, I can't. It's too valuable. Nonsense. You're my friend. Drink it. He insisted. I took the bottle from him, uncorked it, and drank. I could feel the magic of the potion start to work instantly. My hurt shoulder suddenly felt fine. More importantly, the swelling at the site of the wolf bite went away, but there was still an open wound. Wow, said Ranger. I've never seen a bite that wasn't completely cured by a potion of healing. Must have been a bad bite. I nodded. Yeah, it really hurt. So, said Ranger, how'd you end up with a wolf after you? I explained everything to him and then added, you know, I've been thinking. That wolf was probably twice the size of any other wolf I've seen. It was more vicious and more determined. There was something very odd about it. Probably some sort of old alpha male. Been wandering the forest for years. They are the most dangerous, said Ranger. Maybe, I replied. But it was almost like it was more than a wolf. What do you mean? Asked Ranger. I rubbed my chin with my hand. I'm not exactly Chapter 5. Ranger stayed with me for a few hours and helped me cook dinner. He left to return to his home before it got dark and the zombies came. I was tired and went to sleep early, but I did not get much rest. My dreams were filled with images of demons and monsters whose names I did not know. In one dream, a strange child kept screaming at me. Wake up! Wake up! Wake up! When I did wake up, I was covered with sweat and was shivering from fear. I felt my forehead. I had a fever. Could not be from the bite, could it? Drank a healing potion after all. The bite can't be infected. I got up and lit a torch and looked at the bite. It seemed as though it was starting to swell again. I went to my sink and rinsed the bite mark with water. It felt good to wash it, but the wound felt sensitive. I put the torch out and went back to bed. As I lay in bed, I looked out my one window at the moon. It was bright. Tonight, almost a full moon. The moonbeams played across my body as I lay in bed. I looked at the strange shadows they made. And then I looked at the bite mark again. What I saw petrified me. It was glowing under the moonlight. Chapter 6. The next morning I felt much better. The bite mark seemed to be healing more. And I no longer had a fever. After I ate some breakfast, I went outside and inspected the damage caused by the wolf. Apparently, after he had given up trying to get inside my house, he went to my chicken coop and ate all my chickens. He also knocked down part of a fence. Stupid wolf, I thought. I went back in the house and put on my armor and grabbed my sword and an axe. I needed to chop down some trees to get wood to repair the coop and the fence. I feared the wolf might be near, so I stayed within sight of my house. As I chopped down an oak tree, I noticed what appeared to be a sign in the ground in the distance. I'd never noticed a sign there before. When I finished chopping down the tree, I walked over to the sign to investigate. The sign looked new. The wood from which it had been made was not weathered or faded. But that was not the curious part. The curious part was the writing on the sign. It said, "Moon, moon, make me swoon. Get real big and I'm a loon." What kind of nonsense is this? I thought. Probably some villager playing a prank on me. I shook my head and walked away from the sign, looking for another tree to cut down. I soon came to a birch tree, which would be perfect for repairing my chicken coop. I quickly chopped it down and was about to return to my house when I noticed something in the distance. It looked like a small pile of sand which was completely out of place in this forest biome. I walked over to investigate. As I got closer, I saw it was a small pyramid only 3 blocks high made of sand. What the heck? I walked around the pyramid. When I got to the opposite side of the pyramid, there was another strange sign in the ground. This one said, "I like meat. It's a treat. Especially when it's people I eat." I looked around quickly. I felt like someone must be playing a joke on me. "Ranger? Ranger," I called. "Is this you trying to be funny?" I got no response and was not really expecting one. Ranger had better things to do than make suspicious signs all day long. I shook my head and made my way back to my house quickly. I spent the rest of the day repairing my fence and chicken coop. I wanted to make sure everything was secure. Tonight would be a full moon, and it was easier for the hostile mobs to find things to attack and destroy. I needed to be ready for anything. Chapter 7. I was very tired by the end of the day. I had not worked that hard since the first day I spawned into the overworld and had to build a house before dark. I sat inside my house and cooked a pork chop and steak dinner. After I ate, I rested my sword next to my door, and then lay down to go to sleep. As I relaxed on top of my bed waiting for sleep to take me, I looked out the window and saw that the moon was full. It was one of those huge moons. It looked like it was right next to the earth. I smiled at the glowing square. At least some things in the world will always be nice, I muttered as I drifted to sleep. That night I had a horrible dream. The beams of moonlight hit the part of my arm where the wolf had bitten me, and I felt a searing pain. I sat up in bed screaming, but I did not awaken from my dream. I looked down at my arm and it was swelling, filling with pus from the infection of the bite. I screamed as the pain intensified to an almost unbearable level. I was panting for breath, sucking in air between the shooting pains radiating from the bite mark on my left arm. It hurt so bad in my dream that I went to the door and picked up my sword, raised the sword with my right hand and brought it down with all of my strength, hoping to cut off my own arm. But somehow I missed my arm and the sword smashed into the door and it swung open. Outside of the door stood someone who looked a lot like me, except he had glowing white eyes. "Who are you?" I said through my teeth, clenching my jaw against the pain. "I am your new master," he said flatly. "Then help me with this pain," I screamed. "Surrender yourself to it, Steve, and it will go away." This guy was crazy. "I can't. It is too painful. I will die." He laughed. "You will not die. I promise you." "How can you make such a promise?" I yelled. "You have no idea how this feels." At that moment the gigantic wolf that had attacked me the other day seemingly appeared from nowhere and sat down next to the man with the glowing eyes. "Make that creature go away," I begged. The stranger with the glowing white eyes reached over and stroked the beast's head. "Why? He is perfectly well-mannered." The pain in my arm was getting even stronger. I rubbed it with my right hand. Felt like it was on fire. The swelling had gotten worse. He had no manners last night when he attacked me. The stranger leveled his eerie glowing gaze at me. He was simply following the bidding of his master, he said. "What is your name, you freak?" I demanded. "Why, don't you know?" "No," I screamed. "Tell me." "It is Herobrine." As he said his name, a cold chill ran down my spine even as the pain and the heat in my arm got worse. I began to back away from the man, if a man he was, hoping to get back inside my house. As I backed away, I looked down at my arm and saw that it had sprouted thick black hair. "What?" I said softly. "What is this?" I looked from my arm to my hand and saw that my hand was now a paw with sharp claws. I looked at the man with the glowing eyes. A wide, vicious smile was spreading across his face. "What are you doing to me?" I said, panic starting to take over. He never answered. Instead, he snapped his fingers and the wolf leapt at my face. At the moment of impact, I woke from my dream. Chapter 8. I was disoriented when I awoke. I swiveled my head around, checking my room. Wasn't sure at first that I was actually awake. I looked down at my arm. No hair. No claw. No pain. I could have sworn it was real, I thought. But how could something so insane be real? I sat up and swung my legs over the side of the bed. I sat there with my feet on the floor, slumped over. I was rubbing the back of my head. "Herobrine," I said quietly. What was he or it? I shook my head to clear the cobwebs from it, and then looked up and saw something that terrified me. My door was wide open, shattered into a bunch of pieces. What? Had I really attacked the door with my sword in my dream? I stood up and walked over to the door. The gouges in the door sure looked like they came from a sword, and oh no, I thought, are those claw marks? I took a few steps outside my door. Everything else seemed to be in order. My fence was still repaired, and my chicken coop was undamaged. I had come to the conclusion that I just had a very bad dream and that I had been sleepwalking. Or maybe I should say sleep slicing. The claw marks must have been left over from the other night when the wolf attacked me. I was just starting to clean up the pieces of the damaged door when Ranger came running over the nearby hill. I had never seen him out here so early. It must be important. Ranger ran up to me and took a few deep breaths before he started talking. "Steve, the village was attacked last night," he said. "Zombies." "No, Steve, something evil. A monstrosity." Ranger looked terrified. All of the blood had drained from his face. He was serious. "What happened?" I asked, deeply concerned for my friend. "It came out of nowhere. It tore 2 villagers in half with its claws. It ate some pigs. It even decapitated 5 zombies, said Ranger. I put my hand to my mouth. Oh my gosh. That sounds awful. It was. Ranger paused to gather himself, the emotional terror suddenly resurfacing. It looked like a wolf, only it could walk upright like a man. And it had glowing white eyes. I shivered. Glowing white eyes? Had my dream been real? Or a vision of the future? How did you manage to defeat it? We didn't, said Ranger. It left as quickly as it came. I have no idea why. It decided to leave. But we watched it run in the direction of your house. And we thought it might get you. I didn't see or hear anything, I said. You did not hear the howling? Asked Ranger. No. It was the most terrifying thing I have ever heard. It howled like a wolf. Possessed by a demon. I shivered. After my dream last night, this was not something I needed to hear. It sounds horrible, I said. Would you like to come in and rest? Ranger nodded. That would be nice, he said as he walked inside my house and sat down on the couch I had crafted from wood. I picked up a few more pieces of the broken door and put them in a pile. Then I walked inside the house. Ranger, I stopped when I saw him. He was holding a bloodied piece of purple robe with a giant claw slash across it. Ranger was trembling. One of the villagers killed was a priest. The creature slashed him with its claws and he bled to death. I don't know where that came from, I said sincerely. It was you, said Ranger. After all we did for you, you are the monster? No, I did not do this. I was asleep all night, I said. It is not true, said Ranger, shaking his head sadly. Yes, Ranger, it is. I will prove it. I was having this weird dream about some man who came to visit me. He had glowing white eyes. Really creepy and glowing white eyes, said Ranger. Yes. Did he tell you his name was Herobrine? Asked Ranger, trembling. How could he know? Yeah, he did. Ranger rushed past me for the front door and ran to the gate in the fence. He turned around and yelled. It was you. The demon Herobrine has possessed you. You are now his pet monster. You are his werewolf. And with that, Ranger ran away to his village and left me terrified. Chapter 9. The rest is fairly easy to explain. Ranger and a few villagers came back the next day. They gave me an ultimatum. Either leave the area or else build a strong dungeon into which they would lock me for the day before, the day of and the day after the full moon. I liked Ranger, most of the villagers, and my farm. So I spent the next 3 weeks mining stone and building a strong dungeon. I gave the dungeon keys to Ranger. It has held me for 6 full moons now. But each night of the full moon, Herobrine appears to me in the dungeon along with his wolf. My bitten arm burns with pain, and the wolf attacks me immediately before I black out. I have no idea what I do on those nights inside that lonely dungeon, but I always wake up exhausted with no memory. I may be a slave to Herobrine's evil magic for 1 night every month, but I will not let him control me otherwise. End of book 1 of Werewolf